stars up above, so far away we only see their light. Long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. Yesh kochavim sheoram magia arza, rak asher הם עצמם עבדו ואינם. יש אנשים שזיו זכרם מאיר, כאשר הם עצמם אינם עוד בתוכנו. אורות המאביקים בחשכת הליל, הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, הם שמראים לאדם את הדרך, as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. Good afternoon. We are gathered here today to honor the life and the memory of Robert Kahn, and to join our hearts together to give comfort and strength to his family. Death has come to him as it does to all persons, and death brings to our minds and hearts the common concerns and shared destiny of humankind. We are drawn together by deep-felt emotions and are reminded of the essential community that lies beneath the many divisions of humanity on earth. We begin our service with a recitation of poetry, psalms, and prayers. In this way, we link Bob's life with the millennia-old tradition of the people Israel and the eternity of God. Esa einai el heharim, me'ayin yavo Ezri, Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz. A song for ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming, now and forever. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binot desha yarbitzeni yomei menuchot yinachaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'ma'aglei tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech begetz ha'mavet lo ira ra, ki ata imadi. Shivtecha umishantecha hema yanachamuni ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai. Dishanta b'shemen roshi kosi revaya ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti b'veit Adonai la'orech yamim. The words of Psalm 23 in translation. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures. leads me beside still waters and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Adonai Ma'adam, God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed, and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to revert to dust, saying, "Return, O mortal creatures." Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted and behold the upright. They shall have peace. God, you redeem the souls of your servants, and none who trust in you shall be desolate. I'd like to invite Susan forward. We have a few family members who would love to share some words about Bob.
The sadness and grief I feel is overwhelming, but at the same time, my heart is filled with immense gratitude and love. God has created a beautiful day today, filled with sunshine, as a sunny day was something very special to my dad. Dad loved my mother Gertrude with all his being. Whenever you saw them together, they were holding hands. Now they will hold hands forever. He was a proud father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. His grandchildren and great-grandchildren meant the world to him. His love, support, and pride for them were evident until the last days of his life. When my daughter, his first grandchild, was born, he said he never expected to live long enough to have grandchildren. At the time, I didn't know why he said that, but looking back at his life now, I now understand that. Ron, Karen, and I were raised to be proud Americans and to cherish our freedom, but at the time, we had no idea why this was so important to him. We didn't know the horrors of his past. We grew up valuing the importance of family, hard work, integrity, and compassion for others. Dad was very firm with us, especially in our teenage years. We had strict curfews, and if he wasn't impressed with our friends or things we wanted to do, he made no secret about it. There was only one way to do things, his way. He pushed us to work hard in school. I now understand that he imposed tough rules and expectations as he really only wanted the best for all of us. Growing up, Dad never talked about his childhood. It wasn't until I was an adult with grown children that I read his book and learned of the trauma he had experienced while growing up under Hitler, his perilous escape to freedom, and what it was like being an immigrant in this country with no money and no belongings. The many secrets and things he had protected us from were revealed in his book, The Hard Road of Dreams. We never spoke about his time in the Philippines during World War II, but in later years he told me how proud he was of his service to his new country and how he never took for granted the freedom our family has as Americans. I asked how he managed to survive. He said he never gave up hope. Never, never, never give up was his motto. Dad's life took on new meaning as he spoke publicly about the lessons of the Holocaust, the importance of resisting any indifference to anti-Semitism and other forms of religious and racial hatred. Through speaking engagements, he was befriended by people from all walks of life, and how he valued these friendships. He loved his love and passion for people. His wisdom and sense of humor made him well-liked. He did have a little bit of a mischievous side, and I don't know that this story is in his book, but he shared with me that on Shabbat in Germany, his grandfather would send him downstairs to the cellar to bring up the Shabbat wine. Dad would help himself to a few hearty gulps, replace what he drank with water, and bring the bottle upstairs. No one being the wiser, and at least he didn't think so. I can still see my parents laughing as they told me about the time that Dad went through TSA security. He removed his belt, and you can guess the rest. His pants dropped to the floor. Dad tried to share the beauty of life with us and to give us things he never had growing up. In recent weeks, he wondered if he had succeeded. Yes, Dad, you did. You gave us a love of nature as we hiked through the woods or looked for fossils in creek beds, even when you made us get out of bed at 5 a.m. to see the elk in Yellowstone National Park. How I hated trimming the grass around your flower beds, but today I love having a home with flowers and hummingbird feeders because I learned that from you. I have a profound love and connection to Judaism, only made stronger as you lovingly allowed me to wear your bar mitzvah talit, rescued from the Nazis when I became a bat mitzvah just a few years ago. The list of what you gave us and future generations is immeasurable. I'd like to leave you with this quote from his book. The will to survive must serve as a lesson, an inspiration to those who at times may think that life has little or no meaning. It has for me, and it must for those who come after you. L'dor v'dor, Dad, your love and memory will never fade. You will always live in my heart.
Karen.
I am Karen, and this is my husband, Ira. I'm Bob and Gert's youngest daughter. To the countless lifelong friends, the loving staff of One Lincoln Park, the caring aides from Home Instead, to his home, Temple Israel, Chabad of Dayton, and the Jewish Federation, and the selfless nurses from Heartland Hospice and Ohio Hospice, you made this journey to the end one filled with compassion, love, and professionalism. For this, we thank you. During the last 2 weeks, I've had the opportunity to reflect. After looking through countless pictures, I realized there were so many faces of my dad. A happy boy, always surrounded by loving family and friends. A terrified teenager, fleeing from flames in the hands of death. A young man immigrating to a new country, speaking no English, elated to have escaped and to be free. A proud soldier fighting for his beloved new country. A romanticist falling in love and marrying my mom. A dedicated worker keeping government secrets and working 3 jobs to provide for his family. a father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and uncle, always having time to make each and every visit special. A caregiver to his parents, in-laws, and to his dear wife. A writer, publishing articles and books and voicing his opinion on a regular basis. A student, always willing to learn. A volunteer, giving his energy and spirit. A devout Jew and Zionist, having faith and believing in the ideology of having a Jewish state. A teacher, sharing his wisdom and experiences. A peacekeeper, stretching his hand out to all people, regardless of their race or beliefs. A hobbyist, enjoying gardening, tennis, traveling, stamp collecting, sailing, and music. A toastmaster, making toasts and roasts at every occasion and writing heartfelt eulogies for many. An event planner, putting his personal touches on every occasion and even planning his 100th gala birthday celebration. These are the faces of my dad, which will live in our hearts. My dad also had a few of his own catchphrases. There is one that is ingrained in my mind. As a child, I learned early that there was no excuses for not doing something, especially saying, "I forgot." Those words were not allowed to be part of my vocabulary, according to my dad. His response, if I spoke the unspeakable, was, "There is no such thing as forgot." Why was it that all my friends could say to their parents, "I forgot to make my bed," or "I forgot to do my homework," but I couldn't? I tried many ways to get around it, like I failed to remember, or it slipped my mind, but that didn't work. I found it ridiculous that I could not utter these words. As the years have passed by, I have pondered, why was this a house rule? There's no such thing as "I forgot." As the years, I've come to the realization the saying has so much more meaning, not only to me, but to all of us. I think my dad wanted all of us, especially his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, to remember our heritage, as gruesome as it was, not to forget the struggles of all people in this world. He was haunted by his past, and the idea that he might forget or move on was an impossibility. He wanted us to remember the good and the bad, to serve as inspiration, to have a life, to live a life fulfilled. It was his prayer, his promise, his vow to never again have the world glorify hate and violence and forget. You were right, Dad. There is no such thing as "I forgot." I, as well as anyone that has ever met you, will never forget the contributions and sacrifices that you have made to make this world a better place. In his honor, I would like each of you to stretch out your hand to the person next to you and to make the vow to never forget. Shalom, Dad.
I'd like to offer Ron's words this morning, or this afternoon. Dad, you were privileged to live for 100.5 years. Maybe the Almighty granted you this long life because of the many years of revering his name, loving mom, loving family, creating and nurturing friendships with people from all walks of life, all cultures, all races, and any economic status. Dad excelled at his job, even though he hated it, because it involved preparing for war and the probability of the loss of life. Dad encouraged the family to participate in all family life cycle celebrations, no matter how distant travel might be. Dad never turned away from volunteering with Jewish organizations such as B'nai B'rith and the Jewish War Veterans. Thank you for your service. Dad participated in Boy Scouts for almost 50 years, helping numerous young men achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. Dad lectured at many churches, schools, and at Wright State Medical School about the genocide, inhumanity, and atrocities of the Holocaust. He also vigorously supported the establishment of the Holocaust exhibit at the Air Force Museum here in Dayton. Dad wrote and published his autobiography so he could finally tell, particularly to his children, some of the darkest events that took place in his life. But what I will most cherish is my almost daily visits with my father for almost the last 2 1/3 years since Mom died. Every day we were able to have extensive conversations. I found out how deep and everlasting his love for his wife, my mom, Gertrude, still is. I realized that he was a man with deep faith in the Almighty, and that ever since Mom died, he recited prayers daily. I found out what a deep introspective thinker he was. Recent changes in the world brought fear of recurrent anti-Semitism, immorality, and chaos to a world he tenaciously tried to improve with his daily life. Our discussions were deep and meaningful, and for the first time in my life, the dynamics were not between a parent and a child, but were that of a friend to a friend. I observed this in his interactions with my sisters also, allowing us to take a larger role in his life. He let go of being a parent and now became our friend. So my dear friend, father, dad, husband, uncle, grandfather, great-grandfather, Opa, father-in-law, Holocaust survivor, philanthropist, historian, author, last living person of your generation in our family, and faithful Jew. Celebrate your hard road in following your dreams. You have made it. We, as your family and friends, will always remember and never forget your tremendous legacy you have given us. May your soul rest in peace. Shalom. I'd like to invite Emily forward at this time.
Hi, I'm Emily Rappaport, daughter of Susan and Bob's eldest grandchild. I was 11 years old when I realized my grandfather didn't train the elephants at the San Diego Zoo. As the rest of his grandchildren will tell you, he was a pro at tucking us in at night and telling us Hunkle Dunkle bedtime stories. We still don't know why they were called that, but I recall many were stories about his time with elephants. Apparently, my grandfather's the elephant whisperer. Each visit to Oma and Opa's house was filled with stories and showing me cool things like how to dig for fossils, pick out the right ear of corn, or fly a kite. As I grew up and heard more stories, I started to put the puzzle pieces together, and there was quite a distinction between the Hunkle Dunkle stories before bed and the stories he shared during the day. I was probably around 6 or 7 years old when he said he had something to show me and took me up the attic stairs from the garage at the house on Haverstraw. I was anticipating something really cool, like dinosaur bones. Instead, it was an old tattered blanket, which he, when unwrapped, had a violin case. Inside was a busted up violin, and that was the first time he spoke to me about his experience of Kristallnacht. A few years later, he shared with me a photo album of black and white photos. They were photos he took as a soldier during the war in the South Pacific. And though I've seen those photos many times since that day, I still remember feeling paralyzed by fear while looking at the photos, and in particular, one photo of a tree, because he had handwritten with an arrow pointing out a Japanese soldier that was hiding in the tree. These were not Hunkle Dunkle stories. It's taken me some time, and to be honest, some therapy, to really process that my birth and subsequently the butting of heads between the wrong way and his way had opened a fissure so wide and deep that I was the occasional recipient of stories buried for over 50 years, for better or worse. I come back from those Pesach and summer vacations spent with him and Oma and mentioned something offhand to my mom about one of the stories I've heard, and she had no clue what I was talking about. Over the years, when I or the other grandchildren asked questions about his past, he jokingly brushed us off by saying, you'll read it in my memoirs. For years, I think we all thought that saying was some sort of way of saying it's not that important, when really it was a way to stop the floodgates of painful memories. He thought he was protecting us the way he protected our parents, by not speaking about the past. At some point between realizing he was over 90 years old and that I knew At some point between realizing that he was over 90 years old and that I knew what I was talking about when it came to book editing after making a career of it in New York City, Opa decided to trust me with this decades-long secret project. I felt the responsibility, along with the honor and the pressure, to ensure that the untold family trees and happy stories in Mannheim, and of course the pain that came after, was something that the whole family could have knowledge of. This forever changed our relationship for the better, and I couldn't be happier or prouder. At my first meeting with David Brawler, the man who ultimately would publish Opa's memoirs, David told me of the time he met Opa a few years earlier. Opa showed up unannounced at the front desk of a local publishing house and asked the receptionist to meet with the salesman. David recalled that he did most of the talking, as Opa seemed to be sizing him up. But ultimately, once he passed the test, Opa shared his situation and proceeded to place a harvest green hard-sided suitcase filled with 2 stacks of typed pages onto the conference table. But this was only part of the book, as there was a second suitcase in the car, just as full of pages as the first. That's our Opa. David and Opa kept in touch, so when I was allowed access to these pages, and by then David had started his own publishing house, the 3 of us started a multi-year collaboration that ended up as the extended autobiography now known as The Hardwood of Dreams. And believe me, I tried to rein it in from 100 pages, but that man has a memory of an elephant and could have easily written a second volume. And how he acquired so many documents in a world before the internet beats me, but he was determined to include them. David worked with us to ensure Opa would be happy with the result, which is not always an easy task. Now, all 7 grandchildren are adults, and a few gave Oma and Opa some great-grandchildren, Jonah, which may have moved them up in the rankings of favorite grandchild. Nonetheless, we have had the opportunity to ask questions and come to the understanding that what was once his burden has become our legacy. We all have shared parts of our Opa's stories with friends, families, even colleagues. As we say at Pesach Seder, we were slaves in Egypt. To be Jewish means bearing witness as it happened to us too. We have each taken this undertaking to heart in our own ways to ensure these stories are never forgotten. After the publication of his book, Opa and I turned to a new project, the placing of Stolpersteins, memorial plaques of people who did not survive the Holocaust in the places they lived last. I recently saw some in person this past fall in Rome with my mom, and it was as if I was seeing memorials to my own family. To be Jewish is to belong to a family. As of today, we have had 11 Stolperstein successfully installed in 3 cities, and 2 are going through the paperwork to be installed in the 4th city of Frankfurt. When Opa and I would spend long hours working on his book, he would always say to me that we were pushing the peanut forward as a way of acknowledging the enormity of what lay ahead and to have hope that we were making progress. His 100 years long story came to an end this past week. It is now all of our jobs to keep pushing the peanut forward, to keep lighting up the darkness. We are his legacy.
We are taught, we are taught that even when a Sefer Torah is old and worn out, so worn out that the parchment is difficult to read and can no longer be used for the public Torah reading, that we are still bound to honor it. We never throw it out. Instead, we carefully bury it, giving it the same respect that we would to a human being who had passed away. Furthermore, the burial of a Torah does not mean that it ceases to influence. Its teachings and its values continue to linger on in the life of Jews, continuing to influence them each day of their lives to the end of their days. I believe that our beloved Bob Kahn knew this more than anyone. In fact, I would claim that to Bob, the most important item in our congregation's possession is such a scroll, our Czech Torah that was rescued from the hands of the Nazis. Years ago, Bob requested that we always have this scroll in our midst during the afternoon Yom Kippur services. Not just that, but that he be allowed to carry that scroll around the sanctuary. As we know, Bob lived to see the ripe age of 100. While his mind was sharp as a tack, his body was not immune to the passing of time. And over the years, it became harder and harder for Bob to carry that scroll. And I can say that many of our members came up to me because they were afraid that he might fall. I suggested to Bob that perhaps it was time to have somebody else carry the scroll, but he made clear to me that it was not. His response will stay with me forever, and in so many ways defines the man that we all loved and admired. He told me the day that the Torah is too heavy for me to carry is the day that I have no reason for living. In the years that followed, Bob continued to hold tightly onto that Torah, giving honor to it his entire life. And he did so not by just holding its parchment that was in need of repair or the mismatched wooden Eitzei Chaim, but holding on to its history and the memory of those who once read from it and the many scrolls like it. What is true of a Sefer Torah is just as true of a person. The passing of an individual does not mean the end of that person's continuing influence on others, for their teachings and values linger on in the lives of all who knew them, continuing to influence their family, friends, and acquaintances to the very end of their days. And the life and deeds of Bob Kahn continue to shape the lives of family, friends, and community. As we know, and as the family has shared, Bob made every day of his 100 years matter and has left us with more than a lifetime of lessons. When I spoke with Bob's family, the first thing I asked was that they share with me the values that Bob would want to be remembered by. I realized as I was asking this question that in many ways Bob had already answered that for us. In his expanded autobiography, he shared that he was proud to have lived by the values his parents instilled in him, those of fairness, goodness, honesty, pride, and lust for life. He also describes his self-awareness, writing that he was also filled with relentless optimism, enthusiasm, and unrealistic goals. As his family shared their thoughts with me, it was clear that Bob taught us so many other values as well, such as, and we've heard many of them, such as the importance of family, of celebrating good times, connecting with others, helping others, appreciating small things, and always making time for the things that you value. He taught us to find joy in every day, to cultivate strong friendships, to respect others, to engage in dialogue and find meaningful shared ground in every situation. He and Gert were known for always trying to make people feel welcome in their home, passing on the joy of things like themed parties and good friends. Ronald described how Bob knew from his past that the only way to a good, strong, healthy life is through understanding and participating in it as a part of a community and a religion. Karen shared how Bob's deep love for Gert taught her what a partnership can become. Many of these lessons Bob taught by example, others through his words, and he continued sharing more parts of his life as time went on. As we know, there was much he hid for a very long time, but there are other parts of himself that evolved over time, like how he became less strict over the years, and how his love for his grandchildren and great-grandchildren brought out even more of his silliness. But he and Gert were pretty remarkable in the fantasy world that they shared with children. Karen talked about his affinity for elephants and how he was the Pied Piper of elephants, which we have heard about today, that he would see and feed the fake elephants throughout the house. Of course, I think Sam also was wondering how old his children will be before they realize that Bob really didn't own that huge mansion that we call One Lincoln Park. Cam loved that he could be lighthearted about things. He liked playing Lego, he didn't like playing Legos on the floor, but I would love to see that. Like playing Legos on the kitchen floor, picking he did? Is that what you just said? He did. Okay. Wow. All right. Playing Legos on the kitchen floor, picking raspberries, and enjoying nature. He would even play with Beanie Babies with his grandchildren. They never lacked for entertainment or snacks, I understand. He was also playful in how when someone told him he looked awesome at 99, he responded that he was awesome since the moment he was born. But Bob wasn't always so lighthearted. He never let some of the grandchildren touch the oven or anything in the kitchen. I think Ira shared with me that Bob was always going to show him how to cook hamburgers and cut the turkey, no matter what, so he just gave it to him. Eliza shared how she would sit by him as he was reading the newspaper. She was very young at this point, and she would talk and talk. From time to time, Bob would close the paper, look at her, and then go back to the paper and give her a section, all while she kept talking. In these moments, Bob was still teaching. He was teaching the skills of being present, mindful, connecting without words, and holding hands as a way to show love. Jenna also felt they were always very present in their time together because he never allowed for distractions. And Sam shared that his Opa taught him the importance of self-sacrifice, of humility, and always putting others first. Adam appreciated that Bob and Gert's home was an oasis from distractions for him. I believe he went there to study for his CPA test. Their home was always beautiful, with gardens, roses, and fresh vegetables. I think we've talked a little about this, or at least hinted at it, but one of Bob's big personality traits was his fierce independence. He never wanted help with anything. He believed that if you can do something yourself, why ask someone else to do it? Bob's grandchildren shared how Opa had the most perseverance of anyone, especially with goals. He had big goals and said there didn't need to be a right time to meet those goals. You can do it whenever. And if you want to do it, you make time for it. You push through it. And as they explained to me, it made sense to them that Opa lived so long because he never gave up. He never accepted no and was a true role model. Cameron seconded this, citing Bob's stubbornness at his 100th birthday when he insisted on plating his own food as he walked with a walker, even smacking Ira's hand when he tried to open the food for him. All of these values and demonstrations of personality and integrity only touched the surface of Bob's life. Thankfully, Bob saved everything, even the thank you notes Emily wrote to him from when she was 2 or 3 years old. His ability to save and remember have enabled us to continue to learn from him now and into the future. His book, filled not only with stories but pictures and documents as well, are a legacy, as is an incredible family tree that I saw spread across the entirety of his living room, or the many white albums of news and memories about so many different parts of his life. Bob's albums also documented his many accomplishments and his belief to never give up hope and to always dream big and do what you can to achieve your big goals. In his book, Bob wrote, "If we can't reshape the entire world into harmony, peace, and happiness, we would certainly try to build that kind of world immediately around us. And he did. He devoted his life to it, beginning each day with the words of prayer and thanksgiving that were always on his lips. Today, we all feel the deep loss of Bob, of a true pillar of our community. For 78 years, Bob was here as a member of Temple Israel. And throughout his time with Temple and in the Dayton community, through his service to the United States, he continued to give back over and over again. His legacy is steadfast, and like the Torah, his teachings and values continue on well beyond its years. Even as he is called back to his Maker, so much of Bob will remain here with us to honor, love, and cherish. In the Talmud, there's a saying, in Brachot 17a, every creature born must die, but blessed is the one who was reared in the Torah and who labored in the Torah, who pleased his Creator, who lived with a good name, and who died with a good name. For more than 100 years, Bob has been among the just and the upright, and those with a good name. And now we pray that he may continue to rest among the just and the upright forever. Bob lived his life with grace and honor, touching the hearts of those who were lucky to have loved him. His love was truly a gift from God. Through his selfless acts of courage and love, he helped to remind those close to him that all of us are created in the image of the divine. With him, others too found the courage to live their lives to the fullest and to dream big. So now we pray for you that in your rest and eternal slumber, that Bob be one of peace. Of course, words are never sufficient, but now it is time that we let him go into the safety of God's eternal embrace. Zichrono livracha, may his memory be a source of blessing among us. As for now, a miracle is over. A unique and precious human being is no more to our sight. But a new miracle begins, one that our tradition calls shalom, peace. May Bob's eternal soul ascend to heaven and rest in peace forevermore. Amen. I'd like to invite you now to take just a moment for your own silent reflections as you consider the many ways that Bob influenced and impacted your life.
מכל רע, ישמור את נפשנו
Into your care, O God, we entrust the spirit of Robert Kahn, for you keep faith with your children in death as in life. At this time, we continue with the traditional El Malei Rachamim prayer, chanted first and then read in translation. If your body will allow you, please rise. El Malei Rachamim shochein b'mromim hamzir menucha nechona tachat chanvich hashchina im grushim utrim gezohar harakia mazirim et nishmat bar ben Yosef shalach le'olamo Barachamim yastireu b'siter k'nofav le'olamim v'yitror ha'chaim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuach b'shalom al mishkacho v'nomar Amen. Fully compassionate God on high, to our loved one who has entered eternity, grant him clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold him in the embrace of your wings. Secure his soul in eternity. Adonai, he is yours. May he rest in peace. Amen. On behalf of the family, I know this means a great deal that all of you are here. If any of you following our ceremony service would like to come back, you are welcome to join them for a meal of consolation. At this time, we call the pallbearers forward.